Big 12 football off-season projections and forecasting now need to include Iowa State as a main factor. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, breaking down the Cyclones with spring practice up ahead. We got Levi Stevenson on the line from Wide Right Natty Light. Levi, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I am doing just fine. Appreciate you stopping by to talk Cyclones, coming off 7-6, 5-4 in the Big 12, and a not so pleasant experience against the Irish of Notre Dame. 33-9, which literally there's often speculation as to the performance out of conference in a bowl game and how that affects the evaluation of the coaching staff. But in this matter, based on what you're telling me, there's a direct correlation.
Yeah. So the loss to Notre Dame was kind of an eye opener because, I mean, that's, aside from Oklahoma or whatever, that's the first time that they have gone up in the Matt Campbell era, have gone up against a real, one of the, a blue blood of college football that they don't play very often. That's stylistically a lot different because, they play a blue blood, if you want to call Texas a blue blood, I guess, but, definitely Oklahoma or whatever is a blue blood, so they play that one every year, but Oklahoma is stylistically different than pretty much all of the other ones. And they're used to playing Oklahoma. Their team is kind of built to stop Oklahoma, really. Notre Dame was a different challenge. It's, they're built a lot like a Big Ten team, big time in the trenches, lots and lots of NFL players. They're really, really big and strong on it, both from the offensive and defensive line, lots of talent. Not necessarily going to stretch the field vertically, but it's a type of team that, they're not stylistically, they're not terribly different from Iowa. And that's a style that Iowa State has had trouble matching up with in the previous years, especially with the three down front, and which I would say has kind of pioneered that shift in college football, or at least this reiteration of it. And they have had stylistic struggles against that, and they struggled against Notre Dame. And one of the things that you kind of go back to and look at is they just absolutely got manhandled in the trenches on both sides of the ball. A lot of that comes down to, there was the offensive line is talent, especially is very experienced, not super talented, but there's the young players on that line are talented, no doubt. Some of the experience was their experience, and which is a big factor on the offensive line, but you need some more raw talent. And one of the things that was glaringly obvious is that there was a massive gap in strength, just how strong and what their technique looked like compared to Notre Dame. Which ended up basically, and that wasn't the first time that's happened. It happens against Iowa most years because Iowa was just built differently than Iowa State's used to playing. And, it happens against, they got the best of Texas this past year, but that's been the case against Texas too. So that, they made a change, decided to fire previous coach Rudy Wade and have hired Dave Andrews, who was previously was the head strength coach at Pittsburgh. Hired him in. He was at Ohio State for a while, doing some other stuff, and then he was at Pittsburgh most recently. Now he's at Iowa State, and he brought over a couple former assistants with him as well, including Trevor Ryan, who played wide receiver at Iowa State before then going on to Pittsburgh last season, and now he's back in Ames, following Dave Andrews there. And from everything that we've been hearing as far as early spring workouts go, is that it's made a huge difference already. Sounds like the strength program was fine, but it didn't have a lot of direction to it. And it sounds like Dave Andrews has brought a lot more direction to the strength program. So now you have guys that they're not just generically getting stronger because they're in a college weight program. They're actually getting stronger where they need to get. They're working on the mental part of the game. And they're working on, being able to play all four quarters against a team like Notre Dame instead of just, quarter here, half quarter there, stuff like that.
Got Levi Stevenson on the line from Wide Right Natty Light, the Iowa State platform on SB Nation, talking Cyclones with spring practice up ahead. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Please like, comment, share the videos, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter as well at MarkRogersTV. 9 points against the Irish, as we've had conversations about, and also just in my 5 or 6 viewings of Iowa State football under Matt Campbell the past few years. The offensive line, which goes into the strength and conditioning coach change there, has been the last unit to progress and be developed. There was a lack of playmakers on offense on the outside. Obviously, this offense was led by Brock Purdy, 27 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Breece Hall takes over at running back, has a nice season with 23 catches, 900 yards. And then Charlie Kolar, one of the best tight ends in the nation, a finalist for the Blitnikoff Award. All coming back, correct?
Pretty much. He was the semifinals for the Mackey Award.
For the Mackey, not the Blitnikoff.
Yeah,
that's
no
the wide
problem.
receiver.
I mean, that'd be pretty impressive. That would be pretty impressive if he was a Blitnikoff. Yeah.
Yes.
But it's actually interesting too that it's kind of a funny mistake that you made, but because I believe it was Pro Football Focus. Obviously, they're the kind of the new analytics people on the scene. They said when they were talking about the best returning players in the Big 12 next year, Charlie Kolar was on the list. And they said that he posted the highest receiving grade amongst anyone in college football, receiver or tight end, which is interesting. Now, PFF is different. It's not necessarily the same kind of types of analytics that we're used to looking at. Theirs is more based on like physically watching the play, and they kind of grade it out. So it's, put a stock in where put stock in what you will, but without a doubt, Charlie Kolar is, probably, with what's his name from Purdue leaving this year, he's probably the best tight end in college football. And he gets lots of touches. He gets a chance to split out wide a little bit. He's a very good run blocker. But you've got Brock Purdy coming back. You've got Breece Hall coming back. You've got Tariq Milton. Sean Shaw is if I was going to pick a breakout player, keep an eye on Sean Shaw. You mentioned, you kind of briefly mentioned that, the kind of a lack of playmaking on the outside. And I don't know if I'd call it a lack of playmaking so much as I would call it's different than what we got used to the last few years with Iowa State when you had Alan Lazard and Hakeem Butler, where you had just these massive human beings on the outside that they could literally throw it up to and they'll come down with it. So it was just different. LaMichael Petway had a very good season on the outside. Tariq Milton was a nice big play guy. Sean Shaw emerged. So it wasn't that they didn't have playmaking on the outside. They were just mainly utilized differently in this year's scheme. And like I said, Sean Shaw, I think, is kind of broke out this year a little bit. And I think you're going to see him because he's actually a little bit taller than Hakeem Butler was. He's from a technique and precision technique perspective, for sure. He's probably ahead of where Hakeem Butler was at this point in his career. So, I'm not going to say he's going to be Hakeem Butler, but he is certainly has a foundation to be that type of player. So I think he'll see a lot of targets next year, but we'll see, because the Iowa State is very deep at the skill positions. They've got, like I said, mentioned Breece Hall. Jarrell Brock is a really exciting. He'll be a redshirt freshman this year, but he was actually a higher rated recruit than Breece Hall was, interestingly enough. You've got lots of skill positions coming back all over that offensive side of the ball, and the offensive line is your whole question there. You're losing a lot of experience, but you're bringing in the overall talent level goes up, even if the experience level goes down. And I think as the season goes on, you'll see them improve pretty quickly. As Iowa State's offensive lines have done. Now, unfortunately, they've started off from really terrible places, but they've gotten to be at least serviceable units. They've been a very good pass protection unit the last couple of years for the most part. So I think you'll see them improve pretty quickly, because I think the overall talent level goes up pretty significantly when you're finally getting Matt Campbell's freshman offensive lineman in there. Because that's kind of the thing that kind of gets missed a little bit with the offensive line, is that most of the time you're going to be playing juniors and seniors. It's not like a receiver or a running back where you can plug a freshman in and expect them to at least have a good shot if they're a talented player. Offensive line is just different. It takes time to break in, and that was always going to be the position. That was the position, the group that had the farthest to come, and it's the position group that takes the longest to make that transition. And they've got the young talent in there, the freshmen and sophomores that have been in the program for 2-3 years now, that are finally starting to break into the playing time. And I think we should see a jump in improvement on the offensive line.
Back to wide receiver in regards to productivity coming back. Sean Shaw, 15 catches, 5 touchdowns, 15 per reception. Charlie Kolar, again, the Mackey Award finalist.
Yep.
John Mackey, Baltimore Colts. Yeah, I do know the difference between wide receiver and tight end. Of course, the great Florida State Oakland Raiders player. Kolar, 51 catches, 7 touchdowns. How's this kid factor in Tariq Milton? 35 catches, 20 per catch last year.
Tariq's interesting. He's not a big guy, but he's quick. He can move. So he's a guy. I don't know. We'll see what they do with him, because Deshaunte Jones was a slot guy. He ate up a ton of targets last year. Tariq was kind of like he'll get maybe 4 or 5 catches for 90 yards or something like that. He was a big play guy for the most part. They could, in theory, keep him on the outside, but I think they would be smart to move him into Deshaunte Jones' spot. He's quick. He's a very, very good route runner, sure hands. Then when he gets the ball, he can run. He can make some really nice plays after the catch. I think he would be a wise. It would be a wise move to put him in Deshaunte Jones' old spot, which then, in theory, then you would expect to see his targets go up. His yards per catch will probably go down, but I would expect to see his targets would go up. And possibly his total yardage. But the way Iowa State uses their tight ends, they've got every single one of them coming back. You've got Charlie Kolar coming back, Chase Allen, Dylan Sainer. They're all 3 different. Chase Allen, has been appearing on draft boards the last couple of years. Not that he was leaving, but as far as future draft boards go, he's been showing up on draft boards even as a backup tight end. And before Iowa State was even using tight ends, Chase Allen was showing up. So you've got those 2 very good receivers. Then Dylan Sainer coming in, not coming in, I should say, coming back. He's 6'7", 280, and he's a pretty good route runner actually. So he's kind of your main blocking back. But then we've been hearing about Skylar Loving Black is a new name. He was a redshirt freshman last year. He's redshirt last year, redshirt freshman this year. That's a very, very good route runner. Probably he might be the best route runner of the bunch. And then the interesting name out of this tight ends room too is the guy named Easton Dean. He was a quarterback recruit. He was a redshirt quarterback recruit last year, switched to tight end in the middle of the season. And so Matt Campbell is not known at all to be, to speak emphatically, he's actually quite annoyingly very coach speak. I get it. He wants to keep control of the narrative around his program. So he's very, very, very coach speak, sometimes to the point of being kind of annoying. But I'm cool with it. But he spoke very emphatically about Easton Dean a few weeks ago and said that he thinks that he will be the best tight end to ever play at Iowa State, which is a big say because Charlie Kolar is, probably up there right now. And there's a good chance that he'll be a 1st-round pick next year. 1st or 2nd round anyways. So that's high praise coming from a guy that switched from a quarterback to a tight end in the middle of his freshman year. And now Matt Campbell's already saying that he could be the best tight end we've ever had. So you've in theory got 5 tight ends there that will probably get snaps this year, and they're going to use. I think I'm trying to remember what the percentage was, but they used 2 tight ends on almost every it's like something like 80 or 90% of sets last year. They used 2 tight ends. Now that you've got 5 that you feel good with being on the field, I would be surprised if they ever go less than 2 tight ends. Probably closer to 3 tight ends, and you'll see different names out there all the time. So you have those guys eating up targets. Tariq Milton in Deshaunte Jones' spot, Sean Shaw on the outside, and there's a bunch of different names in there. Landon Akers is another guy that you'll probably see his production jump up, as a kind of a backup slot guy. Darian Porter, he's a track star. He was a track star in high school, 6'4", set the 200-meter track record in Iowa's high school history. And then Joe Skates was a 4-star recruit that had offers from Alabama and Ohio State before. He had some academic problems that prevented him from going there. But he was still, talented enough to get those offers. And it sounds like he's if he can get himself in the right place, he's a very talented guy. So they've got lots and lots and lots of depth at that wide receiver spot and in the tight end spot that's going to be fighting for catches.
If you play tight end and have NFL aspirations, go to play college football in the state of Iowa somewhere.
Yeah, no kidding.
The Iowa State or Iowa.
Yeah.
And you should be in good shape here under Matt Campbell, or, of course, the Iowa tradition of cranking out the tight end position as well.
Yep.
Got Levi Stevenson on the line talking Iowa State football, a force to be reckoned with under Matt Campbell in the Big 12, coming off a 5-4 campaign. But as we've mentioned in previous conversations with Levi, in each and every game, in conference play at least, and looking for better things here in 2020.